Hey everyone, welcome to the sky this month for March of 2025. We are now finally moving into spring. Looks like the last of the winter weather is behind us. The temperatures have warmed up quite a bit. The snow is melting, and it's now the perfect time of the year, in my opinion at least, to head out there under some long nights, dark skies with decent enough weather, and see as much as you can see out there in the night sky. And for those of you who are seasoned amateur astronomers, you know that March and April are the two best months of the year to see pretty well anything you want to see, which of course I will get to in a little bit. First off, I'd like to say that as of the time I'm recording this, it is about 6 hours until the lunar eclipse on the morning of the 14th this morning. So unfortunately, I won't have any images from the eclipse for this month. However, if you do see it and it does end up being clear out there and you've made your way out, feel free to send along any photos that you might have taken to observing@amateurastronomy.org, and I'll be happy to share them next month during my Sky This Month presentation. So on the topic of photos from the membership, before we get into our tour with the Stellarium app, we'll take a look at a few images sent in by club members. So the first we have here is the planetary alignment on March 1st, taken by Chris Jabon. He took this around 8:07 p.m. And as you can see here, well, actually it was a wide field or fisheye view that Chris took here. So this is actually one image that I had to kind of crop into two in order to get it on my PowerPoint slide. My apologies for that, Chris. But imagine this, the top here is the left side of the image, the bottom is the right side of the image going from east to west. And in the image we have Jupiter, we have Mercury, we have Venus, we have Uranus, and unfortunately, and Mars as well. And unfortunately, Chris said Saturn had already gone behind the Niagara Escarpment at this point, and Neptune was far too dim, of course, to make out in the sky with just a camera like this. But you can see he circled all of the planets here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the planets all in one image. It's a wonderful shot from Chris. And moving on here, another one from Chris. There's actually going to be two images. This is the first of two. So these were taken on February 1st, 2025 this year. And of course this here is the moon and Venus. So the first image here that you're looking at, Chris said, is a stack of 4 frames at higher grain and a longer exposure to expose the stars overlaid onto a single frame of the moon and Venus sinking behind the roof. The star frames and moon image were taken seconds apart, showing what our eyes can make out, but what a single camera image cannot. And I love this image too. Wonderful diffraction spikes on Venus right here. Great contrast with the moon and the stars behind it. Really nice camera work and really nice editing work by Chris to really capture exactly what it looks like when you're looking at it. And of course, it is tough to get that human eye view with the camera, but I think Chris did a great job on this one here. And then here's the second image from the set. It's a stack of the top 25% out of 500 frames from an SCR file taken at high resolution. And both of these images were taken with an ASI 294MC Pro camera with a 135mm Rokinon lens and a UV IR cut filter. And this one here is also really, really nice. You got Venus right up there and then the slim crescent moon right here. Beautiful image that Chris has captured. Moving along, some images from Bob Christmas. Another one here of the moon and Venus, taken the same night as Chris's image, February 1st of this year, around 6:15 p.m., so just after sunset. And this was taken with his Canon 40D DSLR camera with a Tamron 300mm lens, f4, ISO 400 for a single 1/3 of a second exposure. And that's a beautiful image considering single shot, 1/3 of a second. And again, really, really nice with the diffraction spikes and everything. And then the inlay photo or the inset that he has here is a crop of the crescent Venus taken with his C-Star S50, 1/1000th of a second exposure, taken on March 7th. And you can see right down here in the bottom right corner, there is the little slim crescent Venus. And then the next one that Bob has submitted here too is an image of Venus and Mercury. So Venus, of course, is the brighter of the two at the top right, and Mercury is there at the bottom left. This was taken on March 9th at 8:09 p.m. and that was taken with his Canon 40D DSLR 100mm lens at ISO 200 f4 with the single 0.8 second exposure. And that's a beautiful shot of the two inner planets right there sinking towards the horizon behind some trees in the twilight sky. As always, great images from Bob. Really appreciate Bob and Chris sending in the images. But of course, it can't just be those two every single month. So if you have any photos, like I ask any month, or every month, go ahead and send them in to observing@amateurastronomy.org. If you want me to share them, I will be happy to. And please, send along anything you have. Whether they're pictures, sketches, stories, anything interesting, I'll be happy to take it and share. And the final image I have, since again, I'm recording this before the lunar eclipse tonight, here is an image that I took of the previous lunar eclipse. This was in September of last year. I believe it was the 17th. I took this one on my Samsung S23 Ultra. I don't know the photo settings. I think it was 10 times zoom or maybe 30 times zoom with my phone camera. I just kind of propped it up behind a car. Funny enough, that night I completely forgot that there was a lunar eclipse, and I was just driving around by myself and ended up pulling up in a little conservation area out in Niagara. Looked up and went, oh yeah, right, that's happening right now. So I snapped this image. It was a little bit cloudy from where I was at, but I think it's not too bad an image for a cell phone camera. So wanted to share that one, and hopefully next month I'll have some more of mine to share of last night's eclipse, and hopefully there'll be some more images from all of you as well. So moving on to Stellarium for our night sky tour of this month. Here I have it set to Hamilton, Ontario on March 14th, 2025 at 10 p.m. So I'm just going to do a quick run through this month of the night sky. Nothing too crazy. But on to the evening of the meeting, evening tonight. Actually, you know what? I'm going to move it ahead just a little bit. Let's go to next Friday night. So next Friday night on the 21st, and here is our night sky at 10 p.m. So a couple hours after sunset. So looking over into the west, you still have all of your winter constellations. Over here, you got Taurus and Orion, Canis Major, and the Winter Triangle between Procyon, Betelgeuse, and Sirius. All of the winter constellations are still high enough up there for long enough after sunset. You have plenty of opportunity to see anything you might have missed in the previous few months. Moving up towards zenith, we still have Gemini very high in the sky, Auriga over here, and then you have Cancer and Hydra and Leo, which are coming up towards zenith in the middle of the month and towards the end of the month. And Ursa Major as well is placed very, very high right now for observation of the Messier galaxies that you can find just around the Big Dipper. And then coming down to the east, rising at this point, you have the spring constellations, or the later spring constellations rather, Virgo and Bootes, and then Hercules, some of the summer constellations coming up. And of course, right in here, you have the Virgo supercluster and all of the many Messier galaxies and NGC and other galaxies all scattered around this region here, with the Como Berenice cluster as well, coming up in the next few weeks to their prime observing time. As for the planets this month, we'll start off with Mercury, as always. Now, of course, Mercury, until the very end of the month and the beginning of April, is going to be very tough to see. You can't really see it at all, but moving along here to, let's go, April 5th, and in the morning, a little further along, in the morning, just as the sun is coming up, you can see Mercury right there with Saturn right underneath Venus in the first week or so, or in the second week or so of April. You'll finally be able to see it poking up around because it was an evening object before, now it's a morning object. So there you go, on the 11th, that is the morning of our next meeting. You have a nice little early morning conjunction here, Mercury, Saturn, and Venus. Might be tough to pick that out, but if you can get over to a nice eastern flat horizon right after sunset, try and pick out the three planets right here, just squeaking above the horizon. Venus as well, obviously, there it is, early morning object throughout the first few weeks of April and last week of March. Ooh, my bad. Rising again, right after sunset, or sunrise rather, and it's visible for all of April. There we go on the 25th, getting a little ahead of myself here, but for all of April it is visible there in the morning sky as well. Let's move back into March and we'll go for Mars, the red planet. Let's come back here to around the 21st of March in the middle of the night. And as you can see, Mars is still high up in the sky in Gemini. Plenty of opportunity this month to pick out some views of the red planet. Easy to find. Look up, see the bright, deep red star, which isn't a star, and that is Mars right there. And if you train your scope in at it, then you may be able to see, depending on the magnification size of your scope, some of the features on the red planet, as well as its two very faint moons, Phobos and Deimos, making their way around the planet, although those are definitely dark sky and big telescope objects. To Jupiter, king of the planets. There's Jupiter right there. Jupiter is still in Taurus at the end of the month, although it is setting earlier and earlier. Here is 11:17 on the 20th, and then each night that goes on into April, as you can see, dipping lower and lower, but still plenty of time between now and the next meeting to get any views in there that you missed of Jupiter and its Galilean moons. Saturn, unfortunately, is at its conjunction this month, which means it's going to be right near the sun, passing behind the sun, so it's not visible at all in the month of March until the very, very early morning in the first couple weeks of April, and even then it won't rise high enough in a dark sky or a semi-dark sky to see anything in your telescope, so unfortunately we'll have to wait a while to see Saturn. Uranus is still visible in Taurus as well, and Neptune as well as Saturn is at conjunction, so not visible this month. So as for the moon, in March to April, there we go on the 5th. Funny enough, there's a nice conjunction on the 5th between Mars and the moon. I was actually going to get to that in a little bit, but there we go. Keep that in mind. You have Mars and the moon nice and high up there. Looks like they're only 3-4 degrees apart in Gemini. So that'll make a nice little target for you there and a good photo opportunity. So the moon is at full tonight. That is the 14th. And then last quarter on the 22nd and a new moon on the 29th. And the 29th is also the perfect night, the prime night for our Messier Marathon. So, for those who are unfamiliar with the Messier Marathon, we'll give a little bit of a brief rundown here because March is the month for it. So, if you don't want to read all the text in there or you can't read it, I'll spew it off for you really quick right here. But the Messier Marathon, it's an annual attempt by mainly Northern Hemisphere observers to see as many targets as possible from the 18th century French astronomer Charles Messier's list of deep sky objects in a single night. So Charles Messier, back in the 1700s, compiled this list. It's known as the Catalogue of Nebulae and Star Clusters, more commonly known as the Messier Catalogue, and the objects themselves are known as M objects. That's when you hear M1 or M51 or M31 or M42. Those are Messier objects. So Mr. Messier originally compiled this list as a catalog of non-comets because he was a prolific comet hunter, and that was all the craze and all the frenzy of the day in the late 1700s. So while he spent his nights scanning around the night sky with his primitive telescopes, he would often encounter these faint fuzzy objects, these galaxies and these star clusters and these nebulae, which at first glance looked like a comet. And then, and then oftentimes he would end up coming back to the same area of sky, seeing that same object again, getting excited really quick before realizing, well, that's not a comet, that's a deep sky object. So he compiled this list of 110 objects, which are mostly easily visible, and these objects ended up becoming probably the standard list, specifically for amateur astronomers, the standard list of deep sky objects. Everybody knows the Messier list after being involved in stargazing and amateur astronomy for a few months. It is the catalog you go to see your best and your brightest and your most beautiful deep sky objects. And most of the most famous night sky objects are in his list. M45, the Pleiades, which doesn't look like a comet at all, but you have M45 and M42, the Orion Nebula, M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy. Most of those famous objects will be Messier objects. And they're all very accessible to the amateur astronomer. You can see all of them with an 8-inch scope, and you can see most of them with even a 3 or 4-inch scope. And heck, I'd say almost half the list with a pair of binoculars you can pick out in a dark sky. So there are 110 objects in this list, and it just so happens that at the end of March to the beginning of April from our latitude, the length of day and the position of the Earth's orbit and the rotation of the Earth, the way that we're looking in the night sky, lines up perfectly to allow us to see almost all of the objects in one night. Now you can technically see all 110 objects from Ontario at 43 latitude north. It's extremely, extremely difficult to do. You need a lot of luck to do it. Really clear skies, really steady skies, and a nice dark flat horizon in order to do it. That's why I put here we should be able to see at least 100. I would say there's 100 to 103 that are reasonably accessible, but if you go all in at it and you really find that perfect location, then you should be able to pick out 110. Don't bet your house on it, because it is quite a feat. The most I've ever seen is 104 in one night. But again, the perfect weekend this year is at the end of March, as it is every year, but on the 29th, which is the new moon, which is great for this year, which means that the skies will be nice and dark. And the alternative date is the weekend before, March 22nd. Not as good because you will have a last quarter moon, but still good enough, and it's a little earlier, so you might not be able to see as many objects. But nonetheless, those 2 weekends are your best bets this year to go out and try and bag as many of the objects from that list as you can. So of course, it should be noted to anybody who's never done a Messier Marathon before that it is indeed an all-night event. You have to be ready just as the sun is going down, and you're going to be up and out until the sun comes up the next morning. So it is a full night, an all-nighter event. And at this time of year, the weather is notoriously deceptive. You might hear March 29th and think, oh, it's not going to be too bad. Might get down to 5-6 degrees, maybe. I can assure you it will, and 5 degrees at 3 in the morning after having been up for 8 hours already feels more like -5 degrees. So you're going to want to bundle up, you're going to want to prepare for it beforehand, bring nice and warm clothes, and you're going to want to bring a lot of dew protection because your equipment will dew up over the night. It can almost be guaranteed. I've done quite a few Messier marathons, and every single time towards the middle of the night, you're heating up your lenses, you're trying to get dew off of your atlases, you're trying to get dew off of your table, off of your equipment. It's just something you really can't avoid. And again, I've had it where it comes to 4 or 5 in the morning and we're trying to bag our last objects and everything is iced up and frozen solid. The weather can change, the weather can dip, it can drop. I remember one year when I did it, it was about 6 a.m. last week of March, and by that point the dew had frozen to the point where the list that I was checking off and writing on had completely swelled up and then frozen so that it was rock solid, and I could actually pick up the piece of paper and bang it against my table and it would make a noise like that because the dew had just been so thick, and as it dropped down early on in the morning, all of my equipment was covered in ice. I don't want to scare you off of trying a Messier marathon because it's hopefully not going to be that bad, but it is something to keep in mind and something to prepare for. Luckily enough, there are stretches throughout the night where you can bag a lot of objects in one area of sky before moving on to the next as it rises, so you can probably get some good 3 to 4 hours sleep, take a couple naps throughout the course of the night. So I'll move back over to Stellarium just to give a quick little rundown of how it works. So we'll go on to the night of the 29th. This is Saturday, the 29th of this month, and we'll go to right as the sun is setting. Actually, let's see. So sunset is at 7:41 on the night of the 29th. So 7:41 is sunset. Now there is a specific order for finding all of the objects. I actually linked that in my EH article, and you can follow that list. But you're going to start off in the western sky with the fall constellations in Cetus and Pisces, and bag 2 or 3 of the hardest objects to find, starting off with M77, which, as you can see right here, it is Cetus A, the galaxy in Cetus. And as the sun is going down, it looks fairly high enough, but of course the sky is too bright to see a magnitude 9 galaxy. So we'll slowly bring the time forward to around 8:30, when the sky might be dark enough to bag this one. But again, really, really low, really in that swampy horizon there, with still a lot of glow from the sunset. It's a tough one. You may or may not get it. With some luck, you might. But these first two, M74 over here and M77 in Cetus, both galaxies and both magnitude 9, are very difficult to bag. So I wouldn't count on grabbing those, but hey, you never know. You just might. And then after you bag the first two, or unfortunately miss them, which are the two hardest to get, you move over here, Triangulum Galaxy, M33, Andromeda Galaxy, and then you start working your way down the list from Andromeda over into Cassiopeia, where you're going to get M52 and M103, all of the star clusters. Then from Cassiopeia, you move through up into Perseus, over into Taurus, over into Orion, and here again, 9 p.m. You can get a lot of objects right off the get-go. Let's go up to 10 o'clock here. And you'll be able to get all of the Orion objects, all of the Auriga objects, all of the Gemini objects, all of the Canis Major, and all of those winter objects, which are nice, bright, and easy to find all at one go. Cancer and Leo is up as well, and Ursa Major. So in this time frame from about 9 p.m. to midnight, you can get quite a few objects, and then you can take a little bit of a nap or a break or whatever have you as we move up to early hours of the morning, around 2 to 3 a.m., which is when you start going for your Virgo galaxies. So M58, 59, 60, 49, 83, 68, M104, all of the galaxies, Messier's galaxies in the in the Virgo cluster, all in one go. Move down over towards Hercules and Bootes, still in the early morning here, to get M13 and to get M92. And then as the sun is going to start coming up in a few hours, 3 to 4 a.m., that's when you start going through all of your summer objects, which have now come all the way around and they're rising in the east. So you have everything over here in Antares, all the summer objects in Sagittarius, M8 and M20, and then over into Cygnus, Lyra, the Ring Nebula, and then moving back on, you're going to want to get to Aquarius, which will be rising just as the sun is about to start coming up, to get your last couple or your last few objects. That will be M2, M72, M73, and then M30 in Capricornus, which is another difficult one to find right there at 6 a.m. And again, doubt you're going to see that from our location. You can try your luck. It is magnitude 7, maybe, if you got a clear horizon. So that's why I say 110 objects is a very, very impressive feat. But given the new moon this year, with some dark skies and a nice lower horizon that doesn't look out over any major light sources, hopefully if you put some preparation into it, you bundle up, you get a lot of coffee, and you prepare yourselves beforehand, you may just be able to get 100, 105 Messier objects. I'm not sure this year if I'll be doing it or not. I'll see. But if any of you go out there and try it out and have any success and any luck, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And I'd love to see any pictures, any notes that you have, and hear any stories of anything crazy that hopefully hasn't happened, but anything crazy that happens during the night. So that is our Sky This Month and Messier Marathon run through for March of 2025. And again, in my EH article, I did link two articles, one to astronomy.com with the ordered list and the other to Space Tourism Guide with a general run through of how to prepare a run through the Messier Marathon. So if you need any resources and any help, just go to that article, click those links, and you should be set to prepare for it and figure out how you're going to do it and what you'll need. So, as always, I will see you next month, and happy observing.